Uber. I had never heard of Uber until 3 years ago when I was in Washington, D.C., covering the presidential elections for LBC, and a friend of mine said I needed a cab to get somewhere, and he said, you should download this app. So I downloaded the app, and lo and behold, this amazing limousine appeared. I think it took me to the airport, and it wasn't that expensive. And I thought, well, that's a good service. And then they opened up business in this country, in London. So I downloaded the app here, and I mean, I am, I have to say, a frequent user of black cabs. But there are times when you can't get one, or you just need to know that there's going to be one at the door. Now, of course, there are, in the meantime, lots of different black cab apps. There's Halo that's been developed as well. I think I've only actually used Uber twice in London, but they've now changed their system, apparently. It's not these sort of wonderful big Mercedes cars, which cost a little bit more than a black cab would. They've actually got, I think, 3 levels of service now, and they are trying to, as far as I can see, compete with the black cab market. And what they've also got a meter which runs, it's not identical to the ones that black cabs have, but it links up to a sort of centralised computer system somehow. We'll find out more about it in a moment. Now, I do want to hear from 3 groups of people over the course of the next hour. I want to hear from Uber drivers, I want to hear from cabbies, and I want to hear from customers. What is your experience of using a service like Uber? Now, the reason we're talking about this today is not because there is a black cab demonstration on the 11th of June, although that does come into this. It's because TfL have announced, and for those of you outside London, that's Transport for London. And by the way, this does have relevance across the whole country, because there are some local authority areas that have actually banned Uber, as I understand it. And also 1 or 2 European cities have as well. Now, TfL have announced that they do not believe that Uber's car service is breaking the law by using an app to determine charges. Transport for London, they say they're going to invite the High Court to give a binding ruling on the matter, given the level of concern among the cab trade. Now, the Licensed Taxi Drivers Association, they have claimed that the app equates to being a taxi meter, which private vehicles are not allowed to use. So if you go into a Green Tomatoes or Addison Lee car, for example, you won't see a meter there. They're all on fixed rates. So let's try and get to the bottom of this. What is the situation here? Why do the taxi trade believe that that Uber are breaking the law? And what happens if the High Court finds that indeed they are? 0845 6060 973. Now, I hope I've introduced this in a balanced way and not sort of gone on one side of the argument or the other. I'm going to try and walk a tightrope over the next 50 minutes. Let's see how successful I am. Steve McNamara is from the Licensed Taxi Drivers Association and joins me. Hi, Steve.
Good evening.
Now, TfL, haven't they actually done what you've wanted them to do today? They're going to the High Court to let them make the decision as to whether this is an illegal app or not.
No, TfL haven't done what we wanted. What TfL have done, they've taken one aspect of our complaints. And firstly, let me tell you, our dispute on the 11th of June is not with Uber. Our dispute is with Transport for London for not enforcing the law. That's our dispute. So the first thing I'll tell you is, on the dispute with Uber, they've only dealt with one aspect of it. We've got several breaches of the law by Uber, only one of which relates to a meter, and TfL can't even get that right. They're talking on their press release today about the meter being a smartphone app in Uber. It's not. It's a specific device that has one function only, and that's to calculate the fare. It's not a smartphone app.
What's wrong with that?
Well, the Private Hire Vehicles Act prohibits minicabs from having a meter. Now, there's various reasons for that. The idea is when you get a minicab from any other company in London, they'll give you a price. You get in the car, the guy will tell you it's going to be X amount of money, or the controller will tell you, and that's the fare. The way that Uber do it is their specific device, measures the time and distance, calculates the fare accordingly, just like a meter. The Private Hire Vehicles Act specifically prohibits meters, and Uber have just chosen to ignore it and run with the meter. And more worryingly, up until now, TfL have just let them get away with it.
Why have TfL done that? Because, of course, in other cities, I think I'm right in saying in Berlin, Uber have been banned from using this app there.
In many other cities around the world, the existing authorities have brought in extra legislation to stop the way Uber are running, because they operate a thing called surge pricing, which what that means is at certain times of the day they'll just decide to charge you more money. And around the world, the authorities have brought laws in to stop that. In London, we've got ample existing legislation written in 1998, not that long ago, that regulates how minicabs in London operate. And as I said to you, all the other minicab firms follow the rules and the laws. And with Uber, their business model is completely at odds with the existing legislation in London, and TfL are frightened to stand up to them. They're kowtowed.
Why would they be frightened of them?
Well, they're frightened of... Uber's a multi-million-pound conglomerate. It's funded by Google. It's funded by Amazon. Government Sachs, or Goldman Sachs, as some people call it, are heavy backers of it. They've got lots and lots of money invested. Some people tell me today it's now valued at $3.5 billion. It's a lot of money. And TfL are basically frightened of them. They've just cowered into the corner. They're only bringing this going for this judicial direction as a result of pressure from us. But what they're not addressing is the more worrying issues. When you book a minicab, you have to book it for a licensed operator. So name any minicab firm in London, from your little corner shop to the big companies, they're licensed. You make a booking, you make your booking with the company. So you ring Iain's Minicabs, or you use Iain's Minicabs apps, or you go online, you make a booking with Iain's Minicabs. Iain's Minicabs, licensed operator, operating from licensed premises. The way Uber works is, when you use the app, you make a booking direct with the driver. The driver is not a licensed operating centre. He's not a licensed operator. He's taking the booking illegally. Come the day there's a serious accident, one of the insurance companies is going to look at it and say, oh, this isn't right, you're not insured. Major risk to Londoners.
And what about the situation, I know you're only concerned with London black cabs, but what about the situation in the rest of the country? Because
around the country,
Uber do operate elsewhere, don't they?
They've only tried to operate in 2 other big cities in the UK, and that's currently being reviewed by the relevant licensing authorities there. Hopefully they'll see a bit more sense, and they won't be as scared of Uber as TfL were. TfL have really let London down on this one. They're, as we know, they're very disorganised, chaotic almost in the way they operate. And it's taken, us mounting a mass demonstration to get them to look at one aspect of it. I mean, it's crazy. They should have been on this from the beginning.
We've talked about the meter. You've accused them of breaking the law in several other areas. Just very quickly, I mean, I don't know how technical, I don't want to get too technical here, but just explain some of the other areas that you're in disagreement with them over.
Yeah, but by the driver being the primary person who takes the booking, he's plying for hire. So if I'm driving an Uber car and I'm driving around, outside LBC at the moment, waiting for you to hail me by your app, in effect I'm plying for hire. It's a specific offence, plying for hire, otherwise than with a taxi licence. Once again, it invalidates insurance. There's all sorts of all sorts of problems with the way they operate. When you get a receipt from Uber, the receipt comes from Uber BV, which is the company in Holland. Uber London don't issue with a receipt. The reason that Uber do this is that they've got no intentions of paying any tax in this country, and that's why they operate in this manner. TfL will let them get away with it.
Right, well, Steve, you made some very interesting points there. I have to say we've invited Uber onto the programme to talk about this, but so far they haven't accepted our invitation. Well, we will try and speak to them in the future and put these points to them. Now, I can quite understand Steve's points here. I think that they're very valid. We have a system of licensed taxis in this country. We have it for a good reason as well, and we needn't rehearse all of that. But if I was a cab driver in London and I had done the knowledge, I'd invested a lot of money in my cab and all the rest of it, I think I would feel pretty jaundiced about the fact that these sort of so-called Johnny-come-latelys, as I've seen someone call them on Twitter, are basically trying to take over my trade without obeying what I see as the law. So what do you think? If you are an Uber driver, give me a call and tell me how the service works from your point of view. If you're a cabbie, you've heard your representative there, Steve McNamara, launch quite a good defence of your situation. Like to hear from you too. And also, what about the customer here? Because in the end, the customer's king. Have you had a good experience?